Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangoes of South Florida. And today's date is Sunday, July 1st, 2018. It's Sunday night along the new river of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Yeah, it's a little bit hot, but it cooled down a lot at night. So it's around a little over 9 p.m. Eastern time, and just kicking back. It was interesting. I was like watching some of the video footage that occurred in Portland, Oregon, with the Patriots prayer, and of course you have Antifa and the Labor Against Fascism representatives on the other side. And I see a lot of infiltration going on, even from all ends, in good faith, some instigating and all that. But what really gets me is when the police, some of the police, were doing stuff unnecessary to some of the individuals that kept moving. They still arrest them from both sides. I heard they say 4 people were arrested, and I noticed too, I could thank Oregon Cop Watch, for trying to look at everything across the board, and they were being harassed by a couple of the Homeland Security officers as well. And I think another thing I noticed was during the time when they were actually shooting rubber pallets at the members of Antifa and the Labor Against Fascism also. And people have to realize one thing. I recall when I went to this one forum, is a reference to after the Free Trade of the Americas Association, Assembly, FTAA, down in Miami around 2003. Many of the union brothers and sisters got shot with those rubber pallets, and people got serious injury. Actually went through into their bodies, believe it or not. So, and when, according to the folks from Oregon Cop Watch, it was unnecessary what they're doing to them as well. And it's very disturbing because one thing I noticed, you're always going to have, like I say, infiltrators and riffraff, and even if some of the people from the Antifa side were throwing bottles and other foreign objects and firecrackers at the protests, at the ralliers. So this is a real shame, and it's just one of those things people have to really pay attention. Homeland Security and the police really aren't your friends. I'm not here to bash the police as a whole, because the truth of the matter is some people got pepper sprayed by the county police in Oregon. It's called McAuley or Macaulay County. I could be mistaken. They were involved, and they had Homeland Security police as well. And it's a real complete turnoff. So that's why you always got to be very observant, especially when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security. I was never fond of the concept to have a particular department be established a couple of days after the horrific events of September 11, 2001. And I noticed, too, some of the ideas and the tactics they're using, I found it extremely tyrannical. This is why you have to always study the past practices of these individuals. And, of course, the Homeland Security is trying to, send surpluses to the local police departments on armory, body armor, and all that good stuff, riot gear as well. So that's why, I've been very consistent on criticizing this particular entity, because it is they have tyrannical attributes. And that's why I always see these areas in a more bigger picture. I have to observe and all this good stuff. And don't get me wrong, you got many folks from the other side calling these people Nazis. It's very whitewashed, watered down, and stagnant. And people, hopefully, folks in these movements, you pray about how great communism is. Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin have something in common. They bend over for the banksters, such as the Rothschilds. Okay, that should give you a bit. You need to do some homework as well. And the folks on the Patriots prayer group, the Trump worshipers, and so forth. Do you honor a republic or a corporation? I know you did the Pledge of Allegiance, which is all well and good, but you have to really go a little deep when it comes to these areas. And it's really disturbing because they said their permits got revoked because they claimed to be rioting and violence. And technically it didn't ever really happen. There's a couple of ruckuses broke out. I don't call it a big riot, but a couple of ruckuses had broke out, and it's just one of the disheartening things, and people got to really start paying attention. You got folks from the higher ups are laughing at you individuals. When it comes to division, they want to conquer you. And this is one of the areas they want to do the so-called civil war, because who actually benefits from it? The police state, tyrants, the New World Order. This is not just in Portland, for an example, but it's around the world. So everyone needs to stay vigilant and educate yourselves in these areas. I'm tired of the one-dimensional rhetoric and calling people names. And don't be wrong, there's some good folks, even from a lot of good people in the Patriot Prayer Group. They said keep moving. So the high tensions and all that break out. And it was funny because on one of the streets there's a firearm-free zone. So yeah, police going to protect us, right? Shoot, look, with all due respect and a good faith, technically the police aren't obligated to protect the individual. And you should look at in Oregon itself, you need to look at the Sovereign Immunity Tort Liability Act for any particular state, and you'd be surprised they are not liable for certain actions. So I have there's a lot of disagreements, don't get me wrong, even with Antifa, but some of the stuff the Homeland Security Police were doing was unnecessary, and a couple of people that got arrested on that side as well was unacceptable also, just to give you guys a heads up based on my observation. I can thank Oregon Cop Watch for making that happen. Try to keep it real and authentic instead of the drama and inaccuracies or discrepancies. So, folks, you should go on the YouTube channel, Oregon Cop Watch, and check out these videos and judge for yourselves. Trust me, at least they're trying to put the word out. Hey, a lot of infiltrating is going on in Oregon. It's a very dangerous habit. It's becoming an epidemic. And that's why everywhere else, look what happened at Charlottesville, Virginia, for example. Same thing, different package. Who are they going to blame? One particular group, but they don't have the courage to challenge the city. Okay, that's just give you an example. Blood Guilty, when I did an episode on Blood Guilty on Charlottesville, Virginia, I told this to everyone. The blood's on the hands of city government of Charlottesville for that one young woman's death. Yeah, so looks like I made a little error today. I was trying to get ooh, excellent. Oh, got it. Wow, I had to be a little patient. All right, so I try to use it on the draft on my PDF, but I am going to put this on here. It came out a couple of hours ago on Axios.com, and I got this from Julia Davis on her Twitter account. I do follow her, and she sent some good information on there. And this is exclusive. It came out a couple of hours ago by Jonathan Swan. It's entitled, "A Leaked Trump Bill to Blow Up the WTO," which is the acronym for World Trade Organization. And it says here, Axios has obtained a leaked draft of a Trump administration bill ordered by the president himself that would declare America's abandonment of fundamental World Trade Organization rules. Why it matters, the draft legislation is stunning. The bill essentially provides Trump a license to raise U.S. tariffs at will without congressional consent, and international rules be damned. And I gotta be very frank, so that aspect of it I have to disagree, because it should be Congress should be making that decision. Details: the bill, titled the United States Fair and Reciprocal Tariff Act, would give Trump unilateral power to ignore the two basic principles of the WTO and negotiate one-on-one with any country. One, most favored nation MFN principle that countries can't set different tariff rates for different countries outside of free trade agreements. Two, bound tariff rates, the tariff ceiling that each WTO country has already agreed to in previous negotiations. It's interesting because when you look at these areas, it's very mind-boggling. And I'll be very honest, I was against the World Trade Organization, the United States getting involved in the 90s. You can thank the people in Congress and the Clinton administration as well. Of course, Al Gore loved it also. It would be an equivalent of walking away from the WTO and our commitments without us actually notifying our withdrawal, said its source familiar with the bill. The good news is Congress would never give this authority to the president. The source added, describing the bill as insane, not as implementable at the border, given would create potential tens of thousands of new tariff rates on products and would completely remove us from the set of global trade rules. Behind the scene, Trump was briefed on this draft in late May, according to sources familiar with the situation. Most officials involved in the bill drafting, with the notable exception of hardline trade advisor Peter Navarro, think the bill is unrealistic or unworkable. USTR, Commerce, and the White House are involved. In the White House meeting to discuss the bill earlier this year, Legislative Affairs Director Mark Short bluntly told Navarro the bill was dead on arrival and would receive zero support on Capitol Hill, according to sources familiar with the exchange. Navarro replied to Short that he thought the bill would get plenty of support, particularly from Democrats, but Short told Navarro he didn't think Democrats were in much of a mood to hand over more authority to Trump. I don't know, they tell me if there's Obama or a Democrat, maybe something different. You know how these Mickey Mouse political parties are. I will continue on here. White House response. Spokeswoman Lindsay Walters said it is no secret that the President of the United States has had frustration with the unfair imbalance of tariffs that put the U.S. at a disadvantage. He asked the team to develop ideas to remedy the situation and create incentives for countries to lower their tariffs. The current system gives the U.S. no leverage and other countries no incentive. But Walters signals that we shouldn't take this bill as anything like a done deal. The only way this would be news if there were actual legislation that the administration was preparing to roll out, but it's not. She said principals have not even met to review any text legislation of reciprocal trade. Between the lines, note that specifically of Walters' quote above, Trump directly requested this legislation and was verbally briefed on it in May, but he hasn't met with the principals to review the text. Be smart. Congress is already concerned that with how Trump has been using his trade authorities. Just look at the recent efforts by Republican Senators Bob Corker and Pat Toomey and Democrat Senator Michael Bennet to roll back the president's steel and aluminum tariffs. The bottom line, as smart as the trade watcher told me, the Trump administration should be more worried about not having their current authority restricted rather than expanding the authority bill that this bill would do. And there's a full text on here as well. And it's really intriguing. They can tell you all about it. And the one thing, like I told people for sure, you can actually read this bill yourselves. I am going to put everything on here. But the fact is this, Congress has that authority on Article 1 to do commerce and trade and so forth and tariffs, not the president. You can't have a unilateral decision. And that does breach Article 2 of our U.S. Constitution as well. And I don't want to hear all the Trump worshippers out there, oh, Obama did things like that. I don't give a damn. It doesn't matter. We cannot compare whom, what, and where, okay? Even if they do executive orders and think that supersedes Congress, Congress is null and void in my book as well. That including with the Iran nuclear deal agreement. Because the fact was this, the Senate never approved this treaty. So it is null and void. Oh, I can do executive order and heck, they can review it. No, it doesn't work that way. So the same status quo they're trying to pursue here with the Trump administration. And that's why I know for a fact it won't prevail unless they could do it through Congress, not give the president unilateral authority. That would be irrelevant. That has to be rescinded in that particular language of the bill, and I have to agree on that. So the folks in there may have a difference with the president, but there's some common ground. Then they can restructure it and make it fair for everyone. And I'm against the whole World Trade Organization anyway, because it is part of the One World Order agenda. You know, I wasn't created about NAFTA or GATT. So those areas too are major headaches. And so I could say this to President Trump, with all due respect, your unilateral decision is nothing more than baseless. And that's right. And I can tell all you Trump supporters that as well. All you got to do is read your Constitution. Article 1, it tells you everything what Congress has the power to do. And Article 2, the executive position. Plain and simple, self-explanatory, no exceptions. So that's why I must, like I tell everybody, you can say you know your Constitution, read it, implement it, and let them know how you feel, including President Trump. All right, so it's nothing personal against the man, but he has to do his homework as well. He is no special K warlord or your Lord and Savior. Like every presidential election, everyone's looking for that Lord and Savior to save the day, the Crusader. That we all sit back and do nothing. Let them do all the work, please. If you believe in that, then your duties as constitutionalists or citizens has been perished. So, next thing on the platform here, I'm going to be looking at, and this one here actually came out yesterday from blacklistednews.com. Say a big shout out to Doug Owens, probably doing a show right now in Austin, Texas as I speak. And this actually came from Caitlin Johnstone. And this is entitled the White House, U.S. Ecuador coordination about the future of ASSANGE asylum. And that's, even though some people say he's a hero, I'll say he may be a traitor. But you gotta look at how deep this thing goes. So as it reads here, the agenda of the United States government to extradite WikiLeaks editor-in-chief Julian Assange is kind of like Israel's nuclear arsenal. Everyone knows it exists, but government officials refuse to openly confirm it. U.S. Attorney General Sessions has admitted that Assange's arrest is a priority. Yeah, you need to throw his ass in jail. The Keeper guy, yeah. President Trump has said he supports Sessions and taking that action. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has labeled WikiLeaks as a hostile non-state intelligence service. Yeah, from a former CIA director. Woo, yeah. I like that. God bless Big Brother. Keep the status quo going. Precisely. And the ranking Democrat in the U.S. House Intelligence Committee, Michael Schiff, has stated that he plans on questioning Assange when he's in U.S. custody. You mean that treasonous douchebag himself? Well, you talk like this. It's a real turn on for all the ladies. But far none have come right out and admitted that there's an extradition request for Assange on what the legal basis for might be. Unlike Israel's nukes, however, you'll see the empire loyalists pretending that they don't believe there is an agenda to extradite Assange. You'll often see the social media accounts patrolling on all posts upon Julian Assange at time he's in the news, stating in remarkably uniform language that Assange is free to leave the embassy whenever he wants because there's no extradition agenda. To be clear, these people do not believe what they are saying. Nobody actually believes that Assange is choosing to remain in effective solitary confinement because it's his idea of a fun time. But there are individuals with vested interest in reinforcing the narrative that the U.S. isn't the sort of government that would try to imprison a journalist for telling the truth. It is a false narrative manipulation, which makes it essential to document such events as 10 Democratic senators writing a letter to President Mike Pence demanding that he confront Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno about continuing to give political asylum to Assange. Here's one here: Robert Menendez, Richard Blumenthal, Michael Bennett, Joel Minchin III, Dianne Feinstein, Mark R. Warner, Janine Shaheen, yeah, Christopher A. Coombs, Edward J. Markley, and Richard J. Durbin. As WikiLeaks says here, Democratic senators demand today that Julian Assange's asylum be revoked in violation of international law. Remember them. Exactly, they're a bunch of traitors anyway. And of course, you got ginos like Dianne Feinstein that loves Adolf Hitler and probably has a sex bot of, what's that clown's name? Jorge Soros. Yeah, Jorge, to be exact. 3 full paragraphs of the letter, which was provided as an exclusive to a Spanish-language news publication to really shove the propaganda out into center stage, were dedicated to taking down Assange and WikiLeaks, emphasizing the unproven and plot hole riddled claim that the GRU used WikiLeaks to release hacked information in order to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Those three paragraphs read as follows. It's already been translated. Check it out. Despite these advances, we'll examine extremely concerned about Ecuador providing asylum to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange since June 2012. As you are aware, in its declassified January 2017 report, the U.S. intelligence community assessed that Russia's main intelligence directorate, GRU, used WikiLeaks to release hacked information in order to influence from the 2016 U.S. presidential election. We are also deeply troubled by WikiLeaks' interventions in the 2017 French presidential election and the 2017 Spanish referendum on Catalan independence. Oh my God! Yeah, it's like you folks gonna buy that story, then you're a bunch of damn fools. Okay, just to let you folks, just to let everyone know. I know people who listen to my show understand where I'm coming from. During his tenure as Director of Central Intelligence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo characterizes WikiLeaks as a non-state hostile intelligence service, often abetted by state actors like Russia. For these reasons, we are alarmed that the readout of your June 4, 2018 phone call with President Moreno made no mention of efforts by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks to interfere in the 2016 U.S. electoral process or the elections of some of our closest allies. As the United States is still seeking clarity about the full context of Russian intervention in our election and Russian interference in elections across the world, it is imperative that you raise U.S. concerns with President Moreno about Ecuador's continued support on Mr. Assange at the same time when WikiLeaks continue its efforts to undermine democratic processes globally. Hey, you can agree with Julian Assange or not and everything. You know, I'm going to have to agree with him and everything as well. But you know what? It's called a witch hunting fetish. You know how this hard up, oh yeah, we're going to witch hunt. We're real men and women. We're true patriots. Please. How weak and pathetic some of these clowns are. And I like Free Assange tweets campaign. Them senators are liars. WikiLeaks continue to undermine democracy globally by pushing 100% accurate information. The French presidential election, WL published after the French election, Catalonia, by saying voters shouldn't be beaten. Yeah, I've read that too, so I know these things. And it says here, why would U.S. Senator care that Assange is receiving political asylum if his belief that the U.S. government is trying to extradite him was a paranoid fantasy? The only known existing charge Assange could be arrested for if he leaves his embassy is a bogus bail violation he was charged in with full 12 days after he applied for political asylum. Nobody actually believes ensuring that Assange is prosecuted for the nonsensical charge is an urgent matter, let alone one so urgent it necessitates full attention of tens and sitting U.S. senators and the Vice President of the United States, continuing to pretend that we don't all know that the same government which tortured Chelsea Manning is trying to extradite Assange as a farce, and the correct response to anyone denying it is to laugh in their face. And according to a statement from the White House official, Vice President Pence marched right along to the fascistic drumbeat of Democratic Senators Feinstein, Warner, Menendez, Durbin, Blumenthal, Markey, Bennett, Coons, Manchin, and Shaheen. The Vice President raised the issue of Mr. Assange. The statement reads, it was a constructive conversation. They agreed to remain in close coordination on the potential next steps going forward. Why would the government grant political asylum to Assange be in close coordination about Assange with a government that isn't interested in Assange? It is stupid to have to keep pointing this out, but in fact the political discourse about the plight of the WikiLeaks editor-in-chief is so constantly and aggressively inundated with gibberish about his not being truly detained means this needs to be more pointed out. He's being detained on a threat of extradition and torture. The U.S. centralized power establishment really is that corrupt and depraved. On the background from the official with Vice President's office regarding his meeting with Ecuador's President Lyndon Moreno, the Vice President raised the issue of Mr. Assange. It was a constructive conversation. They agreed to remain in close coordination on the potential next step forward. VP and Mrs. Pence said goodbye says their goodbyes to the U.S. ambassador to Ecuador and a few other unknown officials. They waved and boarded Air Force 2 at about 12:52 local time. Well, this is what WikiLeaks has to say. The White House released the following statement to reporters about Julian Assange today after intelligence hawk Senators Dianne Feinstein, Mark Warner called him for pressure Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno over Julian Assange's asylum. Next time you run into an Empire loyalist on the online forum who tries to claim that Julian Assange is being detained and can believe whatever he wants, show them this article. They really don't have an argument at this point. Any sincere thinking person already knows that Assange is most definitely being detained, and as a UN panel has already stated unequivocally, he should be allowed to walk free of that detention and seek compensation for the wrong that has been done to him. As long as he remains held at gunpoint by the torture machines of the U.S. centralized empire, the U.S. government is tactically admitting its true nature, and all those who support it are tactically admitting theirs. So, and you have to be, and I have to agree completely. Of course, they talk about internet censorship is really bad. If you want to be on here, you could, or if you want to get more stuff on Blacklist News, you could be on his email address. And I gotta give him credit. I gotta give Doug Owen credit because he does collect a lot and shares with everybody else. So more of a consolidation site. But one thing I know for sure about Julian Assange is hey, if you put in information to get people thinking, hey, I think it's a damn good thing. Because the problem is they don't want true journalists. They want a bunch of yes people, peasants and slaves that will bend over for the establishment. They want prostitutes. They want Uncle Tom's and Aunt Jemima's Operation Mockingbird hacks to do their dirty work. All right. This is why I find it's pretty damn unacceptable. I'm trying to crucify the man. All right, like him or not, he's speaking his mind. This is an example of the war on journalism. Okay, it even happened to Tommy Robinson. Regardless of what you think, it's the same motive. There's even an activist in Mexico. I remember talking about a show. Who's a radio guy, radio speaker, an activist. He got murdered as well. So it's the whole thing of war on journalism continues worldwide, whether it's from the United States, Russia, Cuba, etc. It doesn't really matter. And this is the main motive about I support freedom of the press 100%. No ends, ifs, or buts. And you know why? Because there's some stuff out there I just laugh so hard. They're entitled to put this garbage out, but you know what? I don't need to read it. They need us more we need them. That's called freedom of choice, freedom of conscience, and freedom of association. Those are natural born rights. Plain and simple. And I'm not just saying people in the United States have those natural born rights, but around the world, you're all born to be free. Not to be told what to do by the state, the system, or some governmental entity. They're nothing more than hacks, mind-controlled freaks. They want to be slave masturbators, okay? Or masturbators for all I know. This is how you have to look at these individuals. They are the enemy, not your friends. Now, I've been saying this for a good long time. And that's why I tell this to everyone out there. Let Julian Assange go as he wish. Let him be. If you take him out or get him thrown in jail or do his extradition, we know who the enemy is. That's a fact, Jack. All right. So the next one here, my friends, I want to be looking at. And if I'm correct, it came from the Free Thought Project originally. And it was on Freedom Outpost. And that's another good site. Describe them, donate money to these individuals because they are the true media right now in newspapers and all that good stuff. And this is mainly about what happened when you have a individual that was actually sexual assaulting people, and they let them get away with it. And I don't know what's happening here. Shoot. Hope I get this. Yeah, I got it back. Okay, good. I was getting ready to hit the next article. I'm going to take a little time. Ah, there it is. All right. Hey. All right, so it's here. Despite photographic evidence of child rape, Air Force allow accused colonel to walk free. This is by Rachel Belvin. It came out today. An appalling An appalling move that shocked many. The U.S. Air Force has declined to charge an Air Force colonel of child rape, and documents from the case reported by USA Today. An elementary school aged boy told his mother and two other witnesses that Holt raped him, and he had physical injuries from the abuse. In October 2016, allegations of sexual abuse arose after one of the boys returned from a visit with Holt. The boy awoke at night on October 13th having soiled himself, according to the June 14th memo to Major General James Jacobson, the officer deciding whether Holt would be charged. And his mother cleaned him up. The boy told her that Holt pulled on his penis and pulled his fingers in the bottom. Crying, he told the other women in the home the same story. A photo of his bruised penis and a statement from one of the women were left out of the investigative report by the Air Force, according to the memo. A second young boy testified that he had been assaulted by Holt, and he also showed signs of trauma and bruises, cuts, and a black eye. Lawyers for the two boys argued that there was clearly sufficient factual basis to charge Holt for the abuse, and given presence of both photographic evidence and the expert testimony supporting by the veracity of their allegations. However, the photos of the injuries and testimony from witnesses who spoke with the young boys were not included in the investigation conducted by the Air Force, and Holt's history as a wounded combat veteran was likely highlighted instead. Holt was working as a battlefield physician for the Air Force, and on his fourth deployment when he was wounded by an improvised explosive device during the nighttime raid in Afghanistan in 2009. He was left with extensive injuries to his face, skull, and spine, and he endured years of treatment and recovery. No matter the traumatic injuries Holt survived, or how the Air Force may have claimed he served his country while he was deployed, it does not take away from the fact that he was accused of brutally raping and assaulting at least two young boys, and the allegations against him should stand alone. In defense of the decision not to press charges, a spokesman for the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Vada, released a statement insisting that the Air Force investigated the allegations, reviewed evidence and assessment from Maryland law enforcement from child service agencies, and then determined there was not sufficient evidence to support the allegations. The Air Force retained a civilian expert in forensic psychology to evaluate the evidence. The expert's analyst deemed there was insufficient evidence to proceed. Vada said Maryland law enforcement and child services agencies' investigations also found the evidence against Colonel Holt was inconclusive. However, Air Force Captains Lauren Kirby and Stephanie Howell, who were serving as lawyers for the two young boys who claimed they were abused by Holt, are maintaining that the investigation wrongfully omitted highly relevant information in this case. Lawyers cited the opinion of a licensed psychologist who found the boys to be credible, along with photos of the injuries, their injuries, and statements from the boys and other witnesses, which they claimed they should have been easily implicated in Holt in this case. Yet the charges were dismissed because the Air Force claimed the evidence was inconclusive. Members of Congress have responded by pushing for a new investigation in the case. In a letter to Air Force, the New York Senator Christine Gillibrand and Massachusetts Representative Joe Kennedy and Nikki Tsongas pleaded on behalf of the victims. We are concerned that the safety of the children in this case could be seriously undermined because of reported actions taken by members of the command and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which suggests that the Air Force's own procedures and policies were not followed. Among our concerns is that qualified and trained military prosecutors and civilian experts in the Air Force, whose job is to provide essential expertise, advice, and input, these types of cases were potentially precluded from participating in a review of this case. While the facts that have been released in this case are horrific, this is not the first time an individual with power in the military has been accused of sexually assaulting the patients in his care. In another case, a military psychologist was recently arrested for sexual assault after multiple rape victims he was working with accused him of misconduct, and he claimed that they are now even more traumatized because of the abuse they endured at the hands of the man who was supposed to help them. Interesting there. So, it's very just disheartening to hear these things. And this is a fact that Mr. Colonel Holt actually did this. It's going to be blowback in his face when he least expected. And I don't have to do anything, just to be very frank. But one of the areas I get turned off is how many more cases like this do occur in that particular institution or entity. And of course, you hear a lot of horrific horror stories, what's going on with these raids as well. Going to other countries and telling people what to do. And that's why, and just to give you an example, it's horrible what has occurred, but I do find this unacceptable on the behalf of the Air Force. And I'll tell you one thing, it's going to backfire on them when they least expect it. Because the truth of the matter is hell's going to pay when they don't even know it. Very disheartening indeed. So, so we got to keep on going here. And this one here came from the American Free Press. It came out a few days ago, if I'm correct. June 29th. The end is near for the SPLC hate racket, which is the Southern Poverty Law Center. And this was written by John Friend. It says here, in the wake of a high-profile settlement in the Southern Poverty Law Center recently reaching an anti-extreme group, nearly 4 dozen non-profit leaders representing conservative-leaning organizations issued a joint statement condemning the SPLC and intimating that the massive lawsuit will likely be launched against the radical activist group. According to a recent press release, 47 leaders of various conservative and right-leaning nonprofit organization issued what they describe as a joint statement by the organization defamed by the Southern Poverty Law Center, describe how their respective organizations have been smeared and defamed by the SPLC in the past, expressing gratitude that the SPLC has formally acknowledged that it has engaged in such misrepresentations by settling with Mahad Nawaz and his anti-extreme organization, the Quillian Foundation, for $3.375 million. The leaders argued that the organization is simply a leftist instrument of political warfare against those with whom it disagrees, and the organization deserves the infamy it has lately earned. The statement continued, editors, CEOs, shareholders, and consumers alike are on notice. Anyone relying upon and repeating its misrepresentation is complicit in the SPLC's harmful defamation of large numbers of American citizens who, like the undersigned, have been vilified simply for working to protect our countries and freedoms. With this significant piece of evidence in mind, we can call on government agencies, journalists, corporations, social media providers, and web platforms, i.e. Google, Twitter, YouTube, and Amazon, that have relied upon this discredited organization to disassociate themselves from the Southern Poverty Law Center and its ongoing effort to defame and vilify mainstream conservative organizations. In addition, the joint public statement, many organizations are considering also taking legal action against the SPLC, according to the online news organization PJ Media, which first broke the story. Yeah, pjmedia.com. I did share that on my Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus pages, so check it out for sure. And they do follow me on Twitter, which is really cool. And hey, at least they got the guts to put it out there, so good for them. Support these guys, all right? We haven't filed anything against the SPLC, but I think a number of organizations have been considering filing lawsuits against the SPLC because they have been doing a lot of organizations exactly what they did to Mahad Nawaz. Matt Stafford, the founder and chairman of the Liberty Council and one of the signatories of the joint public statement, to explain to PJ Media, the SPLC promotes false propaganda and demonizes the label groups that they disagree with, and that the labeling has economic as well as physical consequences. Stover told PJ Media that he knew of at least 60 organizations that are considering taking legal action against the SPLC for defamation in the wake of the settlement with Nawaz. I said, don't just say it, do it. Okay, don't talk it, you gotta take action. Good grief. What you're doing is making these little threats and you're getting them ready. Importantly, the June 20th joint statement demands that the government agencies, politicians, corporations, media outlets, and social media companies sever ties from the discredited organization, which has for years masqueraded as one of the nation's leading civil rights organizations. Many top internet giants and social platforms, media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, have partnered with the SPLC to monitor, patrol, and combat hate speech, erroneously viewing the organization as an objective purveyor of information and advice. Mainstream media outlets have likewise relied on the SPLC for analysts and advice on issues pertaining to hate and inclusiveness. In reality, the SPLC is a little more than a radical left-wing activist organization that has systematically targeted its political opponents for years. The end result has been a rampant censorship on any views the liberal groups disagree with, which has damaged many organizations financially and interfered with their ability to conduct business. Finally, this leading hate group's credibility is starting to crumble. Well, it's about damn time, because I tell you one thing, my friends, I never really cared for the Southern Poverty Law Center. I seen a movie about that, how Morris D started and all that good stuff, but make it a little bit more pristine. But in a period of time, I was hearing his rhetoric. I'm like, this guy is dumbed down, weak, pathetic, and unmeritable. And now, what you see in a period of time, especially around 2007, 2008, 2009, when they try to target individuals like Larry Pratt and Ron Paul as potential terrorists, right there they expose themselves as one corrupt organization. The SPLC is nothing more than racketeering propagandists that racial division is their business. When it comes to black or white, etc., they manifest, we can make money. They don't care about anybody. They're just using those folks, and anyone that still thinks they're a great organization, you're victims of the Jim Jones syndrome. So, like I said before, don't just say it, do it. And another thing too, I remember in an article around that time, like 9-10 years ago, the FBI stopped using the Southern Poverty Law Center because of their credibility. It's really going shot to hell. So you know what? Them, the Anti-Defamation League, and that band and that group CARE, all these charlatan organizations, so-called civil rights organizations, are nothing more than horse manure, all right, or gator manure. Gator manure is pretty damn potent. If you live in Florida, especially when you're going to the Everglades, you can smell. If it's real bad, you know gator alligators are out there. Just to let you know. But the truth of the matter is, I am very pleased that these vultures, these Orwellian vampires, are getting what's coming, a taste of their own medicine. Woo, okay. So, we're going to do one more here. And the whole thing about the whole Civil War strife, and of course you got the Aunt Esther of Congress, Maxine Waters, trying to spew her pretentious, tyrannical rhetoric on how to go after people who are in these involved with Trump supporters and Trump administrators, and even Pam Bondi was trying to do a ridicule reference to families for dinner or going to a movie. Now, let me tell you folks something. All right. You don't do that. Going people in businesses and calling them out. It's like that place, the Red Hen, in Lexington, Virginia. They just chose poorly, as far as I'm concerned. All right, when they had that one lady, Huckabee, Sarah Huckabee, they tell her to beat it. You know, so you know what is called meeting your fate, because a lot of stuff like this, it always backfires. You don't really need any governmental laws to prevent this from happening. It's called supply and demand. If you're going to create a bad vibe in the business you're in, it's going to blow back in your faces. All right. So the truth of the matter is, but the whole thing with the so-called Civil War is nothing more than second Civil War. Talking about second Civil War is nothing more than mind control propaganda at its finest, right off of Edward Bernays' playbook by the same name, which was released in 1928. And one moment here, I gotta grab something out of my bag. Excellent, I got it. So the final thing we're gonna be talking about here is came out yesterday off of Freedom Outpost, and this is entitled, the commentary entitled "Don't Fall for the Civil War Rhetoric. Let the left own the violence." And this, like it says here, this is by David Risalata, and it says here in the top, violence break out in a large scale would drive the public demand a solution for the government to foster any sense of safety and normalcy. This is what the desired outcome is. So before you let the violence rhetoric of the left push you to achieve their ends, realize that your reaction is what they need you to control you. And absolutely correct. No arguments on here, my friends. So, let me see here. One moment, my buddies. And this one's, so as it reads here, again, shoot. Here. Alright. As it reads here, is America really on the verge of another civil war? Has the political divide become so deep that the conservatives and liberals can find no other alternative to settle their differences that they must be settled through the violence? Some people would have you believe their differences that they must be settled through violence. Some people would have you believe to this to be the case. People with an agenda, that is, allowing ourselves to fall for this propaganda gives the elites all the excuse they need to put the final nail in the coffin and institute a full-blown technocratic police state. The infrastructure all in place. All they need now is consent of the scared public. A barbaric civil war will do the trick. The goal of the left is to rip the nation's morality apart and create conditions where people see their solutions as the only alternative to the tumultuous events unfolding around them. In brainwashing, a synthesis on the Russian manual of psychopolitics, Rhetoric, chief of the Soviet secret police, explains this by saying the following. By psychopolitics, our chief goals are effectively carried forward. To produce a maximum of chaos in the culture of the enemy is our first most important step. Our fruits grown in chaos, distrust, economic depression, and scientific turmoil. At last, a weary populace can seek peace only in our offered communist state. Last, only communism can resolve the problem of the masses. So you see what they're doing here? For years now, we have listened to the hysterics of the left claim that the right represents an ideology of violence and intolerance, despite the overwhelming fact that this is the left who organizes unruly mobs in protest of whatever outrage is motivating them into action. Occupy Wall Street, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all epitome that idea that violence can against imperialistic nations such as the United States, where white supremacism allegedly premates the institution, is justified. The communist left is operating from a list of declared 45 goals they established to bring this country down. The protests were among these established objectives. This list of goals was not only published in the book The Naked Communists, they were made part of the congressional record in 1963. In other words, Congress is aware of what is happening in our country. Goal 19. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations that are under communist attack. Goal 42. Create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, that students and special interest groups should rise up and make a united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. The latest display of emotional virtue in which the left is displaying orchestrated indignation is the immigration debate. Massive protests are once again being utilized to feign moral umbrage towards the Trump administration, even though he is merely enforcing current immigration law. The end goal, of course, is the elimination of America's lawful borders, an unending flow of immigrants who have no interest in sustaining our culture of liberty. Club of Rome 101, North American Union. These issues, which cause conflict among Americans, are deliberately being thrust into the public exclusively for that purpose, to cause conflict. The Hegelian dialect is used to cause problems, get the public to demand a solution, then implement the one that has been waiting in the shadows. Americans were supposed to see the reasonableness in liberalism and accepting it as an alternative to conservatism, which is always presented as selfish and aristocratic. Americans have rejected it outright with the election of Donald Trump and in desperation. The left is working to cause as much chaos as they can bring to our knees. Make no mistake, the left is using everything they can. The Russian investigation, immigration, gun control, and other contentious issues to keep us divided. They invent labels while insisting that their positions are morally superior and that opposing viewpoints of collectivism should be shouted down. Left-wing politicians like Pelosi and Waters have been instigating violence by suggesting people form groups and become disruptors or surround people from the opposite political party and publicly shame them. And these hacks, Pelosi and Waters, they'll hide in the cupboards when it comes after them. So they don't even want to get their hands. We'll have some other folks do the same. If there were to be another civil war in this country, it would be because the left wants one. They have become so intolerant of anything other than their mystical, fabled delusions of utopia that they are enthusiastic about the prospect of staging violent protests and even setting off bombs to get their way. They have been pushing for decades to transform America into a socialist paradise. They have largely failed to bring it to fruition. They are desperate, delusional, and angry, and they are operating from an end to justify the means mentality that makes it all more dangerous. Violence breaking out in large scale will drive the public to demand a solution from the government to foster in a sense of safety and normalcy. This is what the desired outcome is, so before you let the violent rhetoric of the left push you to achieve their ends, realize that your reaction is what they need to control you. And he is absolutely correct. This is part of, we talk about public relations. Edward Bernays' book Propaganda talks all about it. Knee-jerk reactions. It's been going on for a long time, my friends, but now they really want to push this envelope to achieve what they want. A new world order, a technocratic society, have everyone in that same tyrannical plantation. We'll all be numbers, regardless of what your race, color, creed, sexual orientation is, etc. You have to resist these sons of parasites, Orwellian saps, vampires, snowflakes. These people are weak and pathetic. They want everyone else to do their dirty work. So don't jump the gun on these clowns. Laugh at them, ridicule them, give them a taste of their own medicine without using any bellicose tactics. Trust me, when you do that, you'll be making waves, and they'll be in the corner. Like if you put a flashlight on cockroaches, they scatter everywhere. And this is how I see it, regardless of their political views. If you're a tyrannical vampire, you are on my crap list, and I'm not the only one that will say that. Whew, okay, my friends, as all, I thank everyone for listening, but feel free to download and share us around your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you sent me something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. And you can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/lookalike3 with 3 eyes. If you want to be a patron, donor, it'd be awesome. Hit me at gab@gab.ai, yours.org, oneway.org, and buddyslist.co. In addition, you can email me at lookalike3@gmail.com, or to encrypted ones, especially mainly the ones that have a ProtonMail account. Look numbers 03@protonmail.com. Ooh, yeah. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.